Luxury with Natalia. Natalia, I'm your host today, and I'm very delighted to welcome a special guest all the way in the US, Jeff Partin from Oceanstar Marine. How are you today, Jeff?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Pleased to be here.
Thank you for coming on, and it's quite refreshing right now because we seem to see business getting back to normal gradually. Although in the US, you guys seem to have done okay in the terms of the yachting sphere and charters. People are inquiring about the summer holidays more than here in Europe. What do you think?
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of that, especially here in Florida. We dodged most of the COVID damage, I think. Relatively speaking, the governor did a good job managing it, and the officials and whatnot. So yesterday was our first day of reopening. People are allowed back on the beaches. Restaurants are allowed to have people at 50% capacity. And other businesses are opening up. You have to wear a mask wherever you go. And of course, everyone's very still conscientious about washing their hands. But on the boating side, we're expecting, and as you mentioned, there are inquiries for charters in the Bahamas, which appear they're going to maybe reopen in mid-June, maybe 1st of July, which is a great time of the year for that part of the world. And certainly we've seen more boats going up to New England and preparing for the summer there.
Fantastic. Well, that's promising news for the yachting industry. And it's been a very interesting time where people within the industry have tried to connect more and communicate more and think about how to bring value to their clients. So what's your take on that, and what have you personally done to help clients in this time?
Well, I think job number one is communication. And we have to remember at the end of the day, our clients are people just like us. They've got fears and concerns. I was talking with a friend of mine from Boats Group, Kelly Popovic, and she said that all those sales were down a little bit because they have their automated closing or online closing system as well. She said that the traffic on the website, Yacht World, was up 100%. So that means, the read on that is there's pent up demand and people really want to get back on their boats. So we're seeing that side of it. So again, but communication with your clients, reaching out to them, letting them know you're there, staying in touch I think is fundamental. And then secondly, what are you doing with respect to the ones that own yachts that are your clients to address the changing landscape? A lot of management companies, some are seeing more boats come in, some are seeing boats that are withdrawing from management as a cost-saving measure. So maybe get ahead of the curve, start thinking about that, and offer some solutions. Reach out to your clients and say, "Hey, what can we do? How are you feeling?" That's, again, it goes back to communication, maintaining relationships.
Thank you. And especially communication equals marketing, which of course, a lot of the companies, and also from my perspective, clients have knocked on my door and asked, "Oh, can you give us a hand?" And especially the communication level of doing some interesting factual blog posts and really reaching out and giving people the solution. And if they then feel that it's necessary to contact, they can do so without being bombarded necessarily with mailings every 5 minutes, because we all appreciate our mailboxes get full quite quickly. So so it's just about having that contact and giving useful advice so that when the time comes, they can come back to you. And that's something you're
absolutely.
Jeff, you've been doing quite a good job in terms of, being a broker originally and having done quite a few amazing projects. Tell us a bit more about those projects and your scope in general.
Sure, certainly. Well, I was broker for 15 years and a month or so, and I had the opportunity to go to work at Lauderdale Marine Center for director of business development. Doug West had given me a call and said, "Who do you know?" And then after a few weeks, I was like, I don't really know anyone. And then I kind of started thinking, I'm ready for a change. And so I said, "What about me?" And we went through probably 7 weeks of interviews, met everybody there. And, they're owned by a private equity company, Carlisle. So had meetings with those guys, and then ended up going to work with them. And it was really interesting to see how they were run, because they were owned by a private equity company. There's a lot more discipline in reporting and record keeping and that type of thing, because it's essential for their shareholders, obviously. So being exposed to that was quite an education. Being in a yard that does 1,500 boats a year, very much an education. And seeing, I guess, being on the other side of the fence, because I've always been a customer of a boatyard, right? And then seeing what the operational realities are in the yard. And then my job was to obviously boost sales and traffic and everything. And I naturally reached out to the brokerage community and put it across that, hey, this is now a broker. If you didn't believe it before, it's now a broker-friendly yard. Come here for your surveys, your special surveys, short hauls, pre-buy, what have you. We'll make sure things go smoothly for you. And that was sort of the approach we took. And it was a fantastic experience. Learned a lot. I kind of liken it to getting an MBA in yachting. And now, back in March, I decided to open my own shop and Oceanstar Marine LLC, and doing business development and business solutions independently within the yachting world.
Wonderful. And you're very much well known.
That's the new thing.
Yeah, because you've done so much and been and seen a variety of different industries within the industry, let's put it that way, in contacts and one side to the other, and having that relationship with the client themselves as well as on the other side, it really does help that communication going, and you can put yourself in other people's shoes wherever you go. So you're quite a good position to have there, Jeff. Well done.
Yeah, I call it just, being aware of the perspective of all the different stakeholders, whether it's the captain, the owner, the manager, the insurer, flag state, whomever. There's lots of people that get involved depending on the nature of the work being done. And having been a captain, having been a project manager and a broker, that came in handy for, understanding what the customer wants and then trying to deliver it.
And what about the future of yachting in your perspective? Everyone's given their own theories about it and have come on my show to discuss that. And of course, now with the Monaco Yacht Show, there was a bit of a interesting twist there with the Libra and the Cybes members deciding to abstain this year. Now we don't have to comment on if that's good or bad, but of course, change is positive because it means that you adapt. And I don't know how you feel about that and how you see it in the US with the various shows that have been postponed until next year.
Well, it's interesting because anytime you have a major disruption like this, it gives everyone pause and time to reflect. Okay. And I think the industry in general is ripe for innovation and change. How that's going to take shape remains to be seen. But I think fundamentally we need to do a better job as a whole in the industry of cleaning up our own ship or tightening up the ship, whatever metaphor you want to use, and delivering more value to the end user, which is the client. And everybody's got a role to play in that, in making that happen. You often ask people what definition of luxury is. I think it's different for different people. For the owner, it's having the time and money to use a boat. What does that look like? Fundamentally, I recall, I think it was the CEO of Hermes a couple of years ago said luxury is attention to detail. And for their silk scarves, they own the worms, they own the whole process, and they manage it all the way to retail. And attention to detail is fundamental to yachting, isn't it? So there's that side of it. There's the luxury of time and money and how they intersect and how well they intersect. And we service that, what's the word would I use? That dynamic, the people that have the money, they want to be on a boat. None of us, I don't know, me personally, I didn't get into business for luxury. I got into it for adventure. And then the luxury is the standard, because yachting fundamentally is about looking good, isn't it?
Yes.
So anyway, it's been a great ride.
Yeah, that's an awesome way of putting it. I really like your definition there, and also using the quote from Hermes. And in fact, somebody quoted that it's luxury. I mean, yachting is not a luxury per se. it's the manufacturing side of creating something that brings the luxury to the adventure, like you mentioned, or the experiences. And that is what everyone is seeking right now, and trying to get away from people, from what's already been seen and done before. And the evolution of yachts as well has had a huge impact. In fact, you've been involved in refit projects yourself. And what do you think is on demand at the moment? Are people going towards more the explorer yachts, or transforming their yachts so that they can go to these uncharted territories?
That's definitely a growth segment, without question. And you saw the Explorer conference in Monaco that was postponed this year, obviously. And we've seen that happening over time, that yachts are have a more utilitarian aspect to the design. It kind of started with, back in the day, there were the little portholes, right? And now I think it was the Italians that came out with big windows first, maybe Ferretti Group, or if I remember correctly, or CRN. And that's a trend that's not going away. You know, we saw that with Venus and the technology in glass and the acceptance by Lloyd's and the other classification societies of structural components that are glass on boats. So that's definitely going to stay with us. I think that'll continue. People, at the end of the day, most people have their boats for their families. So having areas where everyone can get together in a group. You know, one time there was boats being built where you had 6 cabins, but you couldn't sit 12 people down in one room. So it was kind of funny on some boats. So now you can see bigger spaces, open space, more of a connection to nature, more of a connection to the water and that lifestyle. Because ultimately, I mean, boating's great, isn't it? It's the best way to go, to see the world, to meet other people, to make friends, learn new things. It just doesn't get any better. And if you have the privilege and to be in the industry, it's a great thing. So that's fundamentally a couple of trends that I notice anyhow.
Wonderful. Thank you for those insights. And I wonder, will we meet at what next event, right? I mean, yachting, it's kind of like, I guess the Cannes Yacht Show is one of them here in Europe, but what about—
Is that going on?
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
What about Palma Yacht Show? Did they decide that yet?
I'm not sure what the latest was on that. There's been
That's my favorite show. I think it's the most civilized. You can walk the show in 20 minutes. You're surrounded by great restaurants. They've mastered the art of the slow stroll. Everybody's relaxed, and
you must take it to Barcelona, the Super Yacht Show. That's pretty neat as well. And
the next one that's on, I'm definitely going to be there. I love Barcelona. Next
year. Let's hope that this wave of coronavirus goes away with some form of solution.
Yes, please.
Let's be safe and look after one another. And safety is definitely number one. So even if we are going around and doing our charters and working within the industry, I think that's the most important message to take away, is to just be wary that it is still out there and look after it.
Still out there, help each other out. Let's keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you, Jeff. This has been a real pleasure. Time goes by when you're having a great chat.
There's a dog.
He's happy to say goodbye as well, sweet.
Yep. On that note.
And on that note, always something positive at the end.
Yeah.
So I look forward to seeing you real soon, I hope. And thank you once again for your insights. This has been an episode of Luxury with Natalia. More episodes coming soon. Subscribe and like. Take care. Bye-bye.